Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, Northlight Images, and in this video I'm showing how to make a basic panoramic print using roll paper on the Epson P5300 printer. Now the P5300 is a new printer. The chassis is the same as the Epson P5000, which I've used for many years and have tested, got reviews of, but the print head is the same as the P700, P900. So the ink set is the same as the 700, 900. And one of the benefits of that is that unlike the P5000, which is designed for use every single day, this printer should be more amenable to you leaving it for a week or two between prints. I would still suggest with any inkjet printer, no more than that. But you know, this one, it should print, and I've produced lots of profiles for different papers, it should print the same as the P700, the P900, but just in a much more robust chassis, especially the roll paper, and it's got a cutter and it has a cassette. But this is just looking at making a particular print. Now, I've got the paper here, I've put it on a roll, there's a spindle, popped it in here. The spindle, you just fit the paper onto it, needs a 3-inch core. There is an adapter for 2-inch cores if need be, but 3 inches typically. Now this paper is actually only 16 inches wide. This is Epson Premium Luster. For some reason, Epson produced rolls of this at 16-inch width. Everything else I've got here to test is 17-inch width in terms of rolls, but this is 16-inch. Doesn't really matter because I'm going to use a custom paper size for printing. Now, first I need to load the paper. Now, I just press the little symbol here for the roll and the printer is operating. Now, the printer, I haven't used it for 10-20 minutes and it's gone to sleep and it's doing a bit of whirring and doing various bits and pieces like this. It won't auto-load the paper. I do need to actually insert the leading edge. Now it reminds me, and this is a minor irritation, and does this every time, you can't disable this, it reminds me to load the roll of paper. I drop it into the spindle holders there. By the way, I will be having a detailed written review of the P5300 in due course, and that will cover absolutely everything I find out about it. But this is specifically about making a print. So just click done there, and it tells you to load the leading edge of the paper in until you hear a beep. Now, it's beeped. One thing, my hands were washed not long ago, so I'm okay with touching the surface here. Be careful about touching the print surface of paper when you're loading it. But anyway, I'll just go complete there. It will now do lots of whirring noises. Paper type premium luster. You can change that to whatever you need. I haven't got the paper remaining set on this. I'm just going to load it. Nothing fancy, premium luster, okay. Now, you may be able to hear this. I'm not sure, depends on the sound, but this is a much noisier printer than the P900. In fact, it sounds exactly the same as the P5000, and that's because it is a P5000 in all the mechanicals and everything. Anyway, the paper's being rolled backwards and forwards a few times there. It's finding the leading edge. You can have the leading edge trimmed when the paper goes through, but this paper's been in here, so I know it's trimmed okay. But it will go through. The head goes backwards and forwards a few times. Paper goes in and out a few times, checks things, and hopefully before long we'll have the paper loaded. Now you can leave it, when you switch the printer off, it will unload the paper and leave it in a situation where it can reload it again when it starts. It doesn't mark the paper or anything like that, but in general, when you're finished using a roll, if you're not going to be using it again, take it off, put it back in the box it came in with a plastic bag over it, protect the paper. Papers like that, even a basic paper like this, the premium luster, is expensive, so you don't want to waste it. But it says ready to print. Ink levels are all okay. This is on our wireless network, so I've got a laptop here, an oldish laptop that I'm going to print from, and I'm using the Epson Print layout software. Now, I've opened the image in Photoshop. It's a panoramic image that I've used for testing a few times. and I know the size of the image. At the resolution I've got it's 15 inches by 38, 39 inches, something like that. So it doesn't matter that the resolution of the image is some 500 odd pixels, 500 odd ppi. That does not matter, because the drivers for this, you can send extra detail and it will just produce better looking prints. Now, I will check, I've looked at this for the P700, P900, I put a link to it in the notes for this, but essentially there is no such thing as magic numbers of resolution to send to a printer like this. The more resolution you've got, the better. Now, the effects may not be that noticeable, but in general, the more the better. I'm also going to print, because this is premium luster paper, at the high quality setting, not at the maximum quality or the maximum with black overcoat. Because I know that on luster papers like this and some other papers, that additional high quality just produces bronzing. Now, varies from paper to paper. Some papers don't show it at all, but on this particular paper, there is no point in going for the really high resolution. You won't see any difference. But anyway, I've got this loaded up on that, and so I'm going to go over and print this. Now, I've got this, the image is transferred across from Photoshop into Epson Print layout. I've set various things here. The media type is set. I've set a custom paper size. Now, custom paper size, I've created it and added it to my list of custom papers of 16 inch by 40 inch. Now, 16 inch because it's 16 inch roll paper, 40 inch, well, because of the size of the image. You'll see that it's set paper source, roll paper, borders. You can do borderless printing on this, but I will cover that in another video. You can only do borderless on the P5300 on roll paper. You can't do it on sheet. Quality, set for high quality. Now, layout settings, standard. I'm not using the panoramic settings or anything like that. I'm printing this as a normal print, just on a very big piece of paper. Now, in terms of the layout for it, I've reduced the margin sizes to 12 millimeters, so that's just fractionally under ½ an inch. So there's the picture as it's laid out on my custom sheet. Now, ICC profiles, I've produced an ICC profile for this particular paper. Although Epson do supply profiles for any of the media types that are there, I'm using my own profile because it's one I made. And in general, I find that my profiles just have an edge on the supplied ones. I won't say on all papers, all types, but once I've finished the review of this, the profiles that I've created, and I've done at least 20 odd so far, will be available on request. But they won't be online, but you'll have to contact me and get them. So that's for that. I've got everything set here. All I need to do now is just press print. Well, here I am waiting for the data to come from the computer there to the printer, and once it starts, it'll start. You can tell when something's happening because you can hear the fans starting up. I've got on the display here, it says Harbour 2 PSD, it's a Photoshop file, and it tells me that it reckons it'll take about 13 minutes to print. Now, in producing the various samples for this and things I've been trying at the moment, test images and things, I've noticed that the time here is sometimes a little over. I've never found it taking longer than it said here, so it says 12 minutes now. I would expect perhaps it might take 11 minutes or something like that. It seems unduly pessimistic here. The main delay in things was actually the processing of the laptop, but that's a 2010 MacBook Pro that I use for all my testing. I'm using Photoshop CS6 on it. It would be, with a new machine, it would be much faster, but this one works and I use it for all my tests. It's been all over the place. Now, there is a bar that moves across here to give you a progress indication. If you know the P700, P900, the display looks very similar, but there is not the option on this to see the actual image being printed. So if I was printing this on a P900, I could actually see the image that's going to be printed here displayed on the screen. For some reason it isn't here available on this one here, but it works just the same. In terms of the ink levels, the indicators, everything is very similar on this printer to the 700-900. In some ways, this is simplified a bit from the 700, 900. There are options that's got like CD printing and things like that, which you simply don't have on this. This does, by the way, has a straight through print path loading from the front, which you can print on poster board and things, and I'll do a video looking at poster board. But the thing to remember, if you want to print from the front, the paper has to go right the way through and out the back before it comes back in. And that means with poster board, the poster board would go about 1.5 feet beyond the back of here. I bang into this wall. So when I print on poster board, I will have to pull the printer forward or twist around. It's on a small table here that's on casters. This is a big, heavy printer. I cannot lift or move this on my own. I think it's about 70 odd kilos. You really do want a couple of people to move something like this. Anyway, it's printing at a reasonable rate. Here comes the print. Now, unlike the P700, 900, it doesn't have any lights up here. So whilst it is a clear, slightly dark plastic top on here, I can see the print being produced. There's no light like you get on the 700, 900. There are the few differences come from this effectively being the chassis of the P5000. Now, the P5000 has the best paper handling of this sort of print, roll paper, that I've had, sheet and roll, that I've looked at. It's better than any desktop printer. The sheet handling of this, assuming, so I've only tested a few, the sheet handling is much better than the 700, 900. In fact, I would personally call this printer, apart from the bulk and the noise, this printer is the P700, P900 done right. Roll handling, compare this with the 900, there is no comparison. This one has a powered roller on it with a spindle, so there's nothing touching the paper, and it has a cutter, something you appreciate if you do much roll paper printing. And what a lot of people have told me over the years, that what they really like about P5000 is the cassette at the front here. You can load up basic photo papers, not too thick. You can load up papers in this. You can't print small on this, so forget about printing 6x4s, 7x5s or postcards or anything like that. If you want to print postcards, print on a large sheet of cardboard and then get yourself a guillotine and cut them afterwards. This is not a printer for producing small prints. If you want something like that, buy a smaller printer. Get something like a ET8550, ET8500, something like that, one of the small printers. This big printer. The print, well, it looks very nice. There is virtually no bronzing on it at all. Remember, I specifically chose not to use the highest print quality settings. Just because the dials go up to 11 in the settings does not mean you get any benefit from it. It really is a case of that. But now just leave this print to come out. And this is coming out at fair speed. It's slower at the highest quality settings. You could do it faster even, and you'd have to look carefully to see any issues with it. But here we go, it says 8 minutes to go. Incidentally, if you were wondering how I knew there was so much resolution for this image, this is printed at something like 500 and something ppi. The image is a multiple stitched image taken of multiple shots in portrait orientation with a Canon 5DS. So this is multiple 50 megapixel images, handheld, just quickly pan around, taking the pictures, stitched together. I much prefer handhold, doing it quickly where you've got active waves and things here. After the stitching, obviously with waves and the likes like this, you do have to go through and look for any stitching errors or problems with that. That's usually a little bit of Photoshop work, but this particular one is a huge image, and I'm printing it, as I say, at 500 plus ppi. Does not need resizing down to anything, so it's printed straight out of Photoshop into Epson Print Layout. Epson Print Layout here is being used obviously as a plug-in for Photoshop. And so I'm running on Photoshop CS6, so it'll work on old kit as well. You can use Epson Print Layout as it is standalone, so you could just export a TIFF file, drop it into this and do the processing. So if you want to export a TIFF file from Lightroom and do that, should work fine. I say should work fine because I've not really used Lightroom at all recently. I just don't like it. Now, lots of people have said to me, Keith, you ought to reconsider Lightroom because you don't need a catalogue now necessarily. You can use your own system. So I may well have a look at it. I'm still updating my main editing system, so I will be looking at software this year as well, and trying to see which bits of software I find I need for producing images, which bits of software I find are nice and helpful for producing images. But anyway, this one still says we have 4 minutes to go. And looking here, I can still see, yes, it's still got a fair bit to go. I can see the edge of the print is in here. It still says we've got a minute to go. I'm just, because of the length of the paper here, I'm going to catch it to stop it from falling on the floor. I've pulled the tray fully out, but obviously with a 40-inch print, it's quite long. And there's the cutter, and a nice clean cut across the end. And I have a picture, oops, let's get it the right way around, of the harbour, the outer harbour at Porthleven in Cornwall. If you start to make big prints and you're not used to it, remember, handle them with care. Now, there we go, there is the print. This was late one afternoon, storm coming in. Interestingly enough, if you look out the harbour here, if you head the direction where you're facing where I'm standing, I believe the next land you hit is somewhere on the coast of South America. There's a lot of Atlantic out there, but yeah, a nice print. Now, I know the image works, so I've got no problems there. In terms of looking at the print, it took perhaps a minute less than I estimated it would, and that's it. There's nothing more to it. The key in getting your prints is the preparation of the images. So there we go, one panoramic print. If you've got any questions, please do let me know. I've got this printer here for a little while yet to do some more testing. As I've produced loads of profiles with lots of different papers to try. I'll have a look at canvas and a few other things like that, as well as board. But really, it is a nice printer. It just works. In many ways, as I've said, the P900 is nice, but there were areas of it was just, for my personal preference, it was just too flimsy. Now, you might not like the size, weight, and noise of this, but as a printer, it's very good. Anyway, hope that was of interest. Please do subscribe to the channel. I'm going to have quite a few more things covering this and more general printing stuff and lenses and all the usual stuff as well. So thanks for watching, and bye.